The Tennessee Titans have officially been eliminated from the playoffs, so we're going to examine how we got here, what big decisions are coming, and why Titans fans should have some hope for the future today on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast.
You are Locked On NFL Scouting with the Draft Dudes, your daily podcast for NFL and college football scouting. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's better than this? It's guys being dudes here on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast. We're the Draft Dudes. I'm Joe Marino from Locked On Bills. He's Kyle Crabbs from Locked On Dolphins. And we are your NFL experts here with you daily to talk team building across the league on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast with the Draft Dudes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'd like to thank you for making Locked On NFL Scouting your first listen every day, and a big welcome and shout out to our everydayers. You know who you are. Those of you who never miss a single episode, we appreciate y'all being here very, very much. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed.
Joe, did you watch Hard Knocks last night?
No.
I figured I'd check in and see if you did.
Yeah,
some good stuff.
Bet it was. Super good, right? Cool stuff.
For Christmas.
Yeah. Hate I missed that.
They actually did a couple really cool, like, football-related things, too, talking about, like, their game planning for Dallas and some halftime locker room type discussions. Mike McDaniel said he hoped the game was going to come down to the final minute, late possession, and the whole locker room was, like, mad at him for saying that. Like, no, we want to kick their butts. And then Mike McDaniel called a shot, and it came down the last second. So it's kind of cool.
I kind of agree with the players, though. Why would you want it to be that type of a situation? You should want to win the game convincingly, right?
Because of the opportunity that it would have provided the team.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So,
all right. I'm glad he
got
his wish.
Full context and clarity of it. You should check it out.
I don't think I'm going to. I'm not going to. Yeah, it's not because it's the Dolphins. For everybody out there, I really do like Hard Knocks. I'm very selective with my time, and so I'm just not going to.
I'll start sending you clips. I'll just start sending you clips.
Okay.
You'll get one 48-minute clip.
Oh, yeah. I'll definitely sit there and watch that whole thing for sure. For sure.
Oh, Lordy.
Right. Well, for the Titans fans, they came here to
speaking of the AFC.
Yeah.
It's their time in the sun. We get to talk about this 2023 season. Titans, and they were eliminated in week 16, right?
15.
No,
yeah.
15.
Yeah.
This is a games played versus weeks. It gets confusing at a certain point.
Yeah.
But Tennessee is a team that I think is probably our most interesting conversation yet that we'll have, just because of where the team is at, the intersection of the team, how they've chosen to transition, Joe.
Yes. So we'll do how we got here, what big decisions are coming, and then we'll give you some hope for the future. And I've got some pillars of how we got here, and I almost feel like we should start with John Robinson. Ran Carthon, now the GM. It was his
Couldn't
first.
Help yourself.
No, I have to. No, how did we get here? Well, you got here because John Robinson was unable to maximize his opportunity to get over the hump with the previous nucleus and style of football. And you can debate the style of football, but my bigger issue is the inability to hit on personnel moves. The first round picks were a disaster under John Robinson, minus Jeffery Simmons. Didn't extend players, cut draft picks left and right. And he had some later hits. I mean, Kevin Byard, Derrick Henry, those are good picks. But not enough with the premium investments in terms of those first rounders, not hitting on them. You needed a pass rusher for years, and you flopped there with multiple tries. You needed more at receiver. You couldn't get that done. And so part of the reason that you're in this place is because your general manager didn't give you what you needed to maximize that window where they were winning the AFC South every year. They were competing for the 1 seed. They were the 1 seed. I think that's a big storyline in how we got here. And so, yeah, it's kind of on brand for me to throw shade at John Robinson, but I think it's a relevant opportunity.
I think there's also an acknowledgement of what this season was supposed to be for Tennessee when you consider all of that and the transition that they made from John Robinson. but this was supposed to be a transitional year for Tennessee. And I think we looked at the roster, at least we did in the summertime, and we had a lot of questions about the style of play that they wanted to play and how well it was going to translate. And it certainly did not translate well with Ryan Tannehill. And then they make the change and put Will Levis in, and there's kind of this boom or bust element of Will Levis. But say what you will about this team being 5-10 right now and getting eliminated with the overtime loss against the Texans. Joe, their last 4 games, they've lost in overtime twice and conceded a score in the final minute that gave up the lead.
Yeah.
And then there's the flurry of points that they scored against Miami to actually win that game. So they're 1-3 in their last 3 games, 2 overtime losses. They had the lead late in both of those games. And the Seahawks loss. This team was not that far off from being like 7-8 or 8-7 right now. But when you come into a season with 4 new starters on the offensive line, right?
Mm-hmm.
And one of your returning starter was suspended for a stretch of the season.
Well, Aaron Brewer winds up starting every game at center, but NPF, he was missing a bunch of time. Yeah.
So you have massive turnover on the offensive line. You do bring in DeAndre Hopkins, but was always a passing weapons element. Treylon Burks has not materialized the way that the team had hoped. And obviously he has dealt with some injuries throughout the course of his early stage career, and that story's not written yet. But they were largely unproven until they landed DeAndre Hopkins. The move to bring in DeAndre Hopkins kind of flew in the face of everything else of where they were at as a football team.
Yeah.
So I guess the argument could have been, and it's worked out for DeAndre. He's getting a ton of volume.
Yeah.
He's got a ton of opportunities. Will Levis comes in. They make the quarterback change. When you play the game with low margins for error and you have regressed in the most important element of your unit, which is your offensive line, I think this is the product, because we lost week 1 by 1 point to the New Orleans Saints, right? We lost 1-score games to the Colts and the Ravens and the Steelers. And then we lose in overtime to the Colts again. And then we lose in overtime to the Texans. And then we lose in the final minute to see, we're in a lot of games, but you just didn't have the firepower because it was a transitional year from a team building perspective. As an aging roster, you try and cycle guys.
Yeah, the competitive nature of the team speaks to, I think, what we've always said about Mike Vrabel and the floor that he provides his team. But I think in boiling down what you just went through is the offense sucks. This is a bad offense. Bottom 5 in yards, bottom 5 in scoring, bottom 5 in third down percentage, bottom 5 in red zone touchdown percentage. They turned the ball over 9% of their drives. They had a cooked starting quarterback to start the year in Ryan Tannehill. They transitioned to Malik Willis, which didn't work out, and Will Levis gave them a bit of a spark. And they don't have passing weapons outside of DeAndre Hopkins, who's going to push for 1,000 yards, but is another player on the team in the passing game going to have more than 500? Maybe Chig Okonwko?
Well, Hopkins is almost twice as many targets as the next high.
Right. There's just nowhere to go with the ball. And you mentioned the offensive line. It was a big transition to the offensive line. I don't know that they got more talented, but four different left tackles, 5 left guards, 4 right guards, 4 right tackles. Big shout out Aaron Brewer for taking every snap at center. But you had talent issues with the offensive line, and then you couldn't get any continuity. Guys are playing all over the place. Radunz playing 4 different spots. You could never really settle in. Then your defense is kind of like the good part of your team, but you dealt with injuries all season long with Amani Hooker, Christian Fulton, Jeffery Simmons. Those are like pillars of the defense. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, Harold Landry took a little time to kind of come back off that knee and really be the player he was supposed to be. So you just had problems. You did.
Yep. And that's how you end up 5-10, 5-9 and eliminated with an overtime divisional loss, and having this show done right now.
Yeah. But you're going to get out of the hole probably pretty soon here. We'll get into all of those dynamics, including the big decisions that Tennessee is facing this offseason. So stick with us. But folks, you shouldn't have to worry when you're buying tickets to your next big event. Game Time is here for you, and it is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. They specialize in deals on last-minute tickets, and this is perfect for me right now because Nate Bargatze, my favorite comedian right now, is coming to Charlotte. But the show is on a Sunday, which is also a playoff Sunday in the NFL, and I can't be going to the Nate Bargatze show while the Bills are playing in the playoffs, obviously. So I'm going to wait it out. And if I'm able to go, I'll be able to use Game Time for those last-minute tickets. They also give you an all-in price, views from your seat, a best price guarantee. The app is awesome, easy to navigate. They give you flash deals. They send the tickets right to your phone, so you don't have to dig through emails. I mean, simply put, Game Time has perfected the ticket purchasing process so you can snag the tickets without the stress with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed.
So key decisions for Tennessee. We're locked in. We just need to make sure the Patriots don't trade 10 first-round picks for Mike Vrabel, right? Like
hey, if they're offering 10, I think you should do it. I really do. Hey, 5 of them, you should do it too.
Right. But what's the fewest amount of first-round picks you'd accept for Mike Vrabel? Who I think we both generally agree from a head coach perspective is a top.
Bro, are you getting the number 4 pick? The number 4 pick in this draft?
Is he's an upper quartile coach in the league,
I don't
right?
know. Is he?
Is he an upper quartile of upper
What's
quartile?
the precedent here? I mean, like Sean Payton goes for a 1, but like then the Herman Edwards trade is kind of like a good coach, but not a Super Bowl winning coach. Like I think that Super Bowl tag gets you the first round round compensation.
It's worth at least 1-1. Young coach.
I don't know. We're getting into a weird side tangent. I don't think that's going to happen. I think the Titans are going to keep Mike Vrabel.
It's not what it's meant to invoke a lot of love on Mike Vrabel as a head coach because he's an outstanding head coach. So you don't have any brain trust or football operations.
100% right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You do have some expiring contracts, and this team already has a lot of salary cap space at their disposal. What's the actual number?
84 million, second most in the NFL.
Before touching anything. And there's levers to pull.
Yeah. Well, there's something special about cap space in Tennessee. It's one of those states, right? One of those no state incomes tax states, which
your free agency sales pitches get a lot easier.
You know.
So expiring contracts of note include let's see, I need to add players. Ryan Tannehill, Derrick Henry, Denico Autry, Aaron Brewer, Sean Murphy-Bunting, Christian Fulton, Nick Westbrook-Akine, Travis Gibson, Terrell Edmonds, who was acquired as a part of the trade for Kevin Byard. Al-Shaair, I believe, is also an expiring contract.
Yeah.
So about half, a quarter of the starting lineup is expiring contracts.
Yeah.
So can we play smash or pass with those guys?
Yeah, we should. It's funny. I extrapolate the list of who I think are the most notable. You hit every single one that I had down.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So guys, with Tennessee at the intersection of where they're at as a football team.
Yep.
Who we would bring back. Let's start with Ryan Tannehill, which smash or pass?
Pass.
Easy pass.
Yeah.
He'll probably end up getting
35.
He'll probably end up getting a starting opportunity somewhere.
100%.
Quarterback market.
Did you realize he's 35? Maybe you did.
I'm aware. Yeah, because I was aware when they drafted him in 2012.
35.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Derrick Henry.
Pass.
I am of the same mind as you, and I know that might be unpopular for Titans fans, but Spears is giving you really good play. I think he's third in all-purpose yards amongst rookies in this year's class.
Yeah. Is the interesting part of the Derrick Henry conversation is like we just talked about it. They do have $84 million in cap space. Does 1 year, $10 million fully guaranteed bring him back? And does that have a tangible impact on your ability to make other moves? No. So like if you want to, you can.
You could.
Yeah. And it's not going to really hurt you.
I'll tell you one guy I would bring back in that I'm smashing Denico Autry coming back.
He's a friggin' stud. He's 33 though, but like he's been one of my favorite football players over the last 4 or 5 years to watch. Versatile, inside, outside, unbelievable motor, can rush the passer.
Give that man a 3-year deal with the first 2 years guaranteed, competitive offer. I'd lock him in because he's still playing football at a very high level.
Yeah, and as you get younger, you're going to want to have those types of players on your team. Yeah.
Just a couple pillar veteran types for each position room, effectively. Aaron Brewer.
It's a tough conversation for me. He's 26 years old. He's the only guy in this offensive line that's been available to them all season long. And I think he's played better. He's always going to have his limitations because I think he's probably the smallest offensive lineman in the NFL. But at center, the stability that he's given you when you haven't had any, like, I'm not panicking here, but I think there's a bigger case to be made today than there was in the way I felt about him coming out of last year.
Right. And there is some guard center flex there too. So I think that there's a floor of value that, as long as you're not giving him an Andre Dillard contract, and we can talk about that contract in just a minute, I think there's value to him being back either way. Yeah. Especially with the familiarity of the scheme. Azeez Al-Shaair
played the most snaps on their defense. He's 26 years old.
I'd bring him back.
Yeah, I'd do it. Yeah. I don't think it's a huge deal, but I'd bring him back.
I'm going to do a package deal of Sean Murphy-Bunting and Christian Fulton. They seem like they're over Christian Fulton.
Yeah, I think he looked good last year at times, and then I don't think he's really been able to build on that. To me, he'd be back on a 1-year incentive laden deal, right? I'm not bringing him back and saying, okay, you're for sure one of our starters. I think he can be, but I'm not going to have a lot invested in Fulton.
Murphy-Bunting.
You got to have something at corner. I mean, gratefully they have like Roger McCreary, who's wound up being good, but it'd be nice to have something returning that you like. And their defense has been decent despite a horrible offense.
I guess the weird thing about where Tennessee is at, and a guy like Murphy-Bunting, I like Murphy-Bunting better inside. I don't know about you. But then you have like McCreary can play inside.
He's been your slot this year.
Right. Elijah Molden, I think a viable inside type
he could
player.
Stay on the field, right?
Right. So you have kind of this collection of guys that I think there's some overlap as compared to, at least like Fulton's like definitively a different body type.
Yeah.
I know Caleb Farley's been through all the adversity in the world, right? His first round pick. But they're different body types to play outside, and that's a little bit more the traditional value. So I think that's the thing where Bunting, he's physical to play outside. But I think the dynamic athleticism, he's probably better served to play inside with his physicality as a nickel type player. So that's the bind for me, is who do I want to end up commandeering the vast majority of those snaps?
Probably McCreary, right? Like, I hear you, but like probably McCreary.
That would be, so that's, I'm not married to bringing Murphy Bunting.
Right.
Even though he's one of the younger players that at 26 right now that they could bring back.
Yeah.
Levers. Do you want to talk about levers?
Yeah, they got 3 levers they can pull if they wanted to create additional cap space. And again, we've kind of talked about this with the Commanders conversation, where they have a ton of cap space, but it's smart to restructure players that you're going to stay committed to because of the increasing cap and dollars now versus dollars down the future and rollover cap. It makes a lot of sense to do this. So 3 big levers. Harold Landry, you can restructure there and save yourself $12 million in cap. Jeffery Simmons, $12.8 million in cap. And then maybe Amani Hooker, which you get just under $4 million, $3.9 million there. You could also cut DeAndre Hopkins and save $8 million. But if you're going to roll with Will Levis, which I think they will, Hopkins and what he's meant to him, I probably want to keep him around and try to add more and, be willing to pay him that second year. So I think that when it comes to levers, that those are the ones that I think are worth bringing up.
You know who I'm cutting? I'm cutting Andre Dillard.
He's bunts.
That contract did not age gracefully. They're going to be in a position to draft offensive line. It's a really good offensive line class. At least Petit Freres give you some quality flashes as another tackle option.
And I play him. I would keep Radunz on the right side. I think that's been a nice revelation for them. Like, he's bounced around so much, but at right tackle, I think he's played his best football. And that'd be nice for him to be an answer there. And maybe NPF can be on the left side. Or maybe Skoronski. Maybe you like him at guard.
Right. And I think that's not to get into Levy Grill, but there are a number of guys that I think have good positional flexibility on the offensive line where you can identify, hey, this guy fits us best.
Yeah.
And shuffle some of the other pieces around. Just a quick note from a bookkeeping perspective, they do have some players with some void cap that is worth it. Like Ryan Tannehill is currently scheduled for $9.2 million in void dollars this year, upcoming in 2024. Derrick Henry scheduled for 4.75. You also have Al-Shaair as a player who we are talking about re-signing but he's got $2.5 million in void money scheduled for 2024, plus future years of void money, about $634K for the next 3 years after that. So that's a player, I think that's more incentive to bring that player back.
Yeah.
If he's going to be on your books for those kinds of dollars as a younger player who's done well, you could bring him back. So just adding a little extra dynamic to some of those personnel decisions we've been talking about. Some of those guys expiring contracts that are still going to leave their mark on your salary cap for another year.
5th-year option decision for Tennessee is Caleb Farley. That'd be $11 million, $11.3 million for 2025, fully guaranteed. Yeah, it's going to be a no.
Yeah.
It came into the league with injuries, and it just hasn't stopped. And I hate it. He's a very talented player, but got to be able to be on the field for your team, and he has not been able to do that. So I think that's a good summary of the decisions that Tennessee is facing this offseason. And next up, we're going to talk about why Titans fans should have some hope for the future, the Levy Grail component of our conversation. Stick with us. But, folks, you got to check out Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the most fun, easiest, most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. I love the format. It's just you against the numbers. It's not you against thousands of other players, including the pros, including the Sharks. It's just you against numbers. Here's what you do. You select 2 or more players. You pick more or less on their projected stats, and you place your entry. That's it. It doesn't take long. You can make your entry in under a minute, and then when you win, the withdrawals are super, super quick. So check it out. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, that's prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy.
It's time.
Tighten
Fight
up.
on, my men. I'm hurt, but I'm not slain. So lay me down and bleed a while, and rise and fight again.
There it is.
Levy Grail.
The Levy Grail.
If you're new to the concept of the Levy Grail, if you're a new Tennessee Titans fan, or Tennessee Titans fan who's new to us, I should say. Maybe you're a new Titans fan too. Don't matter. The concept is Marv Levy gave this speech. Was it one time he gave it?
You always ask me that. I'm not sure. I think it was after maybe the first or second one. I don't know.
Okay. So the Bills had that stretch of AFC championships and going to Super Bowls. And the head coach, Marv Levy, after one of the losses, delivered this poem as a speech to the team to galvanize them to get back on the horse and we'll get them next time type thing. And as Tennessee, effectively your season is over, it's time for you to get them next time. So that's what we're doing here. Reasons to be optimistic. I want to start with Will Levis, if that's okay.
Sure.
He certainly looks the part. Now there's highs and lows to his play. The physical ability's never been a question. So for Will to come in and put more vertical elements into this passing game with the same skill players and have kind of the ability to work off script at times, but win from the pocket at times. And I just think he's a perfect personality fit for Mike Vrabel and the style of play that Tennessee wants to have too. So I've liked the flashes from Will. It's not perfect. It can be sloppy at times. There can be poor judgment at times. That'll be on him and that coaching staff to clean up. It'll be on them to put better weapons around him to make the decisions easier at times. But he's physically capable of doing everything on the football field. When you watched him during his peak season at Kentucky, which was 2021, you got a lot of the same impressions. And then they regressed in 2022 offensively because they had a coaching staff change on the offensive side, and they were hurt everywhere that year. So he paid the price for a little bit for that with his dip in performance, some of it perpetuated by himself. He was banged up that year. But they have potential to have really stolen a quality starting quarterback with a second-round draft selection, and it's a testament to if that position's not settled, keep swinging the bat.
Mm-hmm. And how good was it that he got to play this year and get experience in a year where, like we talked about, a bit of a transitional year, an important opportunity not only for Will to get those reps in game action, which cannot be replaced, but also, for this brain trust, the coaching staff and the executives to see what type of player he is and know how to build around him to give him a an even better chance to be successful moving forward. So I think that's absolutely where the conversation should start. And this is going to be another one of those teams where, like you mentioned already, there's not big decisions at the coaching staff or the front office. So you can just build, right? Take what you have, which is a ton of cap space. I mean, you're on all likelihood going to be over $100 million in cap space. You're not going to be restricted whatsoever with your ability to add talent to your roster in terms of veterans, trades, whatever you want to do there, on top of your draft capital. And not that they're brimming with capital, but they do have a 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, and 2 7s. And your first two picks, 1 and 2, right now are number 7 and number 38. And Tennessee might be one of those teams that you look at and think as a trade back team, right? To, if there's a blue chip talent that you want at 7, like pick them, but you can also move back and really add some additional ammunition to give yourself more flexibility on day 2, which, has been pretty kind to Tennessee throughout the year. So it's the resources. It's having a really talented young quarterback that has some experience and, being able to just kind of build this thing moving forward with Rand Carthon and Mike Vrabel.
Yeah. And I think when you consider where the strengths are of this draft class, I would want an offensive lineman and a wide receiver. You get 2 picks in the top 40, you get impact players in both spots. Yeah. Is really how it should boil down when you consider it's Kyle Phillips and Treylon Burks and Chris Moore right now as prominent wide receivers on the roster aside of DeAndre Hopkins and Westbrook Akine, obviously. And he's an expiring contract. So do you bring him back? I'm sure it wouldn't be cost prohibitive to bring him back. And then on the offensive line, we alluded to the positional flexibility. Radunz has played tackle and guard. Aaron Brewer's played center and guard. Daniel Brunskill can play center and guard. Peter Skoronski can play tackle and guard. Like, you have enough shuffling of the pieces, and you've gotten at least some reps of each one of these guys to evaluate them to be able to say, hey, we think this guy is best here and that guy's best there. So we want to pursue this position for a major upgrade. Or you can say, we're going to take the best available offensive lineman and use him kind of like they did with Skoronski as a pillar of the offensive line and then complement him with players to the best of our ability around him. So I think they have the offensive line, I think, is a major work in progress. But the good news is I think there's enough flexibility where it's not like we're coming into this offseason saying, yeah, Tennessee needs 3 starting offensive linemen. I don't think it's that dire of a situation. I just think they have to get another pillar piece and then shuffle the rest of the pieces around it.
A pillar piece plus continuity, right? Like,
yes,
you could look at this and say, bring Aaron Brewer back, and our tackles will be NPF and Radunz. Our guards will be Skoronski and Brunskill, and your center is Aaron Brewer. And you're like, but then that's just the same thing you just did, right?
I think you need an upgraded tackle.
Right. Yeah, I think you need an upgrade, and then you need to kind of figure out, okay, Skoronski, like, you're a really nice player, young. You're going to be our what position, and then let him be that position, right? I think that's going to be important for guys to settle in. Like, I think to maximize a player, like, versatility is a great thing. It's huge, but if a player is going to become the best version of themselves, being in a spot is going to unlock that to me. And so I would try to start getting these guys in that spot. That's going to make the most sense for them to become their best player.
Maybe this conversation is we just want an upgrade over Aaron Brewer, and it's not because Aaron Brewer's not a good player, but Aaron Brewer and what he physically is and what his limitations are because of his stature versus, do we want to be a punch you in the mouth football team? Why don't we go out and get a 350-pound power center and somebody can actually bring that punch in the middle of your offensive line?
If they can find one, they should do it, right?
Go draft Zach Frazier from West Virginia.
That the guy?
Cedric Van Pran from Georgia.
All right. So there's your path. Hey, look, last thing here, I think you got some young talent. We talked about Will Levis. We talked about Tyjae Spears, Chig Okonwko, Treylon Burks. The book's not written there. Skoronski's a good-looking young offensive lineman. Roger McCreary, Jeffery Simmons, Amani Hooker, Harold Landry, Arden Key. It's like, you got some players. And you're a competitive team.
Redemption story.
Yeah, he really is. Yeah.
But been a nice pass rush presence for them. So that's a fun storyline too. That's definitely a rotational guy. I think that they can hang their hat on. So There you go. And by the way, you play in a division. You want a reason for optimism.
Yeah.
Where the winner right now, the most wins they're going to have is 10.
Yeah.
And realistically, it might be less than that.
Yeah, there's no juggernaut.
If you told me that Jacksonville was going to beat Carolina and lose to Tennessee week 18 and they finish with 9, I'd believe you. If you told me the Colts were going to lose to the Raiders this weekend, I believe you. Who do the Texans have?
Don't know. Some team in the National Football League.
The Texans have Tennessee this week.
There you go.
And then the Colts and Texans play each other. If you told me the winner had 9 wins, I would believe you with how it currently stands.
Yeah.
So
you'll be all right. Hey, 2027. In 2027.
And Joe, again, that's what's crazy is this team, the last 4 games, if they didn't give away the late game scores in all of them, they'd be 8-7.
Yeah. But the reference there.
But they did.
In 2027, you get the coolest stadium I've ever seen. So
reasons for excitement for Tennessee Titans fans. We hope you enjoyed this foray into Tennessee. I know we certainly did. I'm Kyle Crabbs. He's Joe Marino. You can find us on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. That is going to do it for us here today on the show. We are out of here. Take care. We'll talk to you all again tomorrow.